And we intend to continue to provide our support for energy and food security, employment, and overall macroeconomic stability. Thank you very much for coming. Thank you very much for your presence. We look forward to engaging with you in the next few days. We thank you for your hospitality, your commitment to building a strong and resilient future for the people of the Gambia. We are also grateful for the opportunity to engage in dialogue on a broad range of issues related to trade finance in Africa. I'd be remiss if I didn't mention Converge, which is our annual event in London on an annual basis. We look forward to seeing you again this year in London. Everyone's invited. And I look forward to continued engagement with you and partnership with you in the years to come. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Dean Adansi, CEO of GHIB. Thank you very much, sir. We'd like to welcome the Honorable Minister for Trade, Industry, of course, Regional Integration and Employment in the Gambia, Honorable Maud K. Cisse. We'd like to welcome you, Honorable Minister. Trade within Africa, even travel within Africa is a challenge these days. So it's a really great event to have here when we talk about trade. We tend to trade mostly outside Africa. So the next speaker will break it down for us. I'm a bit afraid of announcing the name because I think the joke may be on me this time. Because it's a funny thing about names. When you name people, you better get it right. So I was drama in the beginning, and I hope the next speaker will forgive me if I don't get the name right, and will correct me and will be kinder to me than I was to Linda. To discuss with us on intra-African trade to boost regional collaboration, here is Gashong Ebledi Zuwos, Bank of Ghana. Did I get the name right? If I didn't, please be kind to me. But such an important subject, talking about trade within ourselves in Africa, which has been a challenge. Sir, please. Thank you very much. And you will correct me nicely. Please.
Thank you very much. It's a three-syllable. Gershon Agble Johu. Honorable Ministers, distinguished governors and central bank colleagues, Chief Executive of financial institutions, captains of industry, development partners, ladies and gentlemen, I stand on all the existing protocols. Good morning. I'm honored to address you today on behalf of the Governor of the Central Bank of Ghana, Dr. Johnson Pandit Esiama, who extends his warm greetings and appreciation to the organizers of the GHIB AfroTrade X Forum 2026. Whilst he wished to be here personally, circumstances have not permitted him, and he has asked me to convey his strong support for this forum, which provides an important platform to discuss strategies for enhancing intra-African trade and fostering regional collaboration. Allow me to also express our gratitude to the government and the people of the Gambia for their warm hospitality in hosting this important event. I also want to thank the Chief Executive of the GIB and the team for the privilege of addressing this distinguished event. A program of this nature is designed, among other things, to bring together policymakers, banks, corporates, and development institutions with the shared objective of moving the conversation from ambition to execution. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa's economic potential is immense. With abundant natural resources, a growing youthful population, and a rapidly expanding market, the continent is poised for sustainable growth. Despite these advantages, Africa's share of global trade remains modest, and intra-African trade accounts for only a fraction of the continent's total commerce. Africa today faces a paradox. We are home to the world's largest free trade area by membership, yet African countries continue to trade far more with the rest of the world than one another. Nearly 85% of Africans' exports leave the continent, largely in raw or semi-processed form. This structure limits value creation, weakens economic resilience, and constrains inclusive growth. It is within this context that the topic intra-African trade to boost regional collaboration is very apt. Distinguished guests, the vision of a vibrant intra-African trade market has never been more compelling than it is today. The quest to boost intra-African trade is not an end in itself, but rather a means to achieving broader economic and social objectives. Intra-African trade transcends mere economic integration. It reflects the aspiration for a unified economic space where goods, services, capital, and labor move freely across borders, unencumbered by inefficiencies and structural barriers. The African Continental Free Trade Area constitutes the largest free trade area in the world in terms of participating countries. The agreement brings together over 1.3 billion people across 55 African countries, with a combined GDP estimated at approximately $3.4 trillion US. The AfTA therefore presents a unique opportunity to integrate African economies into regional and global value chains, stimulate foreign direct investment, promote job creation, capital formation, and knowledge transfer. Successful implementation of the AfTA has the potential to significantly expand intra-African cooperation, boost tourism, deepen manufacturing and industrial activity, and transform the structure of the African economies. Estimates suggest that consumer and business spending could reach $6.7 trillion US by 2030 and $16.12 trillion by 2050. This fundamentally reshaping Africa's engagement with the global economy. According to the United Nations Economic Commission for Africa, business-to-business spending on the continent is estimated at approximately $4.2 trillion, and this comprises $915 billion in agriculture and agribusiness, $606 billion in manufacturing, $784 in wholesale and retail trade, $357 billion in natural resources, $250 in banking and insurance, and $80 billion in telecommunications and information technology. These figures underscore the vast, yet largely untapped potential of intra-Africa trade. Distinguished guests, there are critical enablers that governments and policymakers must prioritize to boost intra-African trade. A single African market depends on seamless movements of goods, services, capital, and labor. Achieving this requires harmonized regulations and standards across member states. Regulatory alignment covering product standards, financial regulations, and labor laws will reduce trade barriers and eliminate redundancies and create a more predictable business environment. In today's knowledge-based economy, innovation and technology are key drivers of competitiveness and growth. Encouraging research and development, fostering entrepreneurship, and investing in education and skills are essential to intra-African trade. African governments and private sector actors must collaborate to establish innovation hubs, support technology startups, and promote digital literacy across the continent. Ladies and gentlemen, financial integration of African markets also presents a significant opportunity for boosting intra-continental trade. There is a need to work towards a unified financial ecosystem that enables the efficient flow of capital across borders. This requires harmonized banking regulations, robust cross-border payment systems, and improved financial inclusion. In this regard, African central banks have taken an important step forward through collaboration on the Pan-African Payment System, PAPS, which facilitates secure, efficient cross-border payments while reducing reliance on third-party currencies. Industrialization is central to the success of intra-African trade. Strong industrial capacities support economic diversification and reduce dependence on volatile external markets. We have historically exposed African economies, to supply chain disruptions, including those witnessed during the Russia-Ukraine war. Industrialization must also be accompanied by sustained investment in infrastructure development, particularly in transport, energy, digital connectivity. Improved infrastructure lowers transaction cost, enhances regional connectivity, and facilitates efficient trade flows across the continent. Furthermore, industrialization is a major driver of employment creation, generating opportunities across a wide range of skills levels and contributing to inclusive economic growth. Distinguished guests, progress will require intentional trade and industrial policies. Historical experience demonstrates that successful economies actively supported strategic industries through targeted policies and institutions. Structural transformation has rarely occurred through market forces alone. In this regard, financing and investment strategies remain central to Africa's industrialization agenda. While progress has been made through initiatives such as PAPS, there is scope to further expand and enhance these systems to reduce cost, minimize delays, and mitigate exchange rate risks. Efficient financial system will also support fintech innovation and improve access to credit for businesses. Strengthening the financial sector to support domestic resource mobilization is equally critical. Deep and resilient capital markets, sound banking systems, and improved financial inclusion are necessary to mobilize domestic savings efficiently and engender confidence among both domestic and international investors. Foreign direct investments also play a strategic role in financing industrialization. Beyond capital flows, FDI facilitates technology transfers, enhances productivity, and supports the development of new industries and infrastructure. In this context, it may be timely to revisit continental industrialization initiatives such as the African Union Accelerated Industrial Development for Africa, AIDA, which prioritizes industrial policy integration, local capacity utilization, economic diversification, technology transfer, and the strengthening of capital and financial markets. We therefore encourage governments and stakeholders, many of whom are represented here today, to intensify efforts to support African industrialization and intra-Africa trade agenda. In conclusion, intra-African trade is more than commerce. It is a pathway to shared prosperity, economic resilience, and political cohesion. By strengthening trade finance, deepening regional collaboration, and harnessing technology and innovation, Africa can accelerate industrialization, create jobs, and improve living standards across the continent. On behalf of the Central Bank of Ghana, Dr. Johnson Esiama, I reaffirm our commitment to supporting initiatives that promote intra-African trade, foster regional collaboration, and advance Africa's economic future. I wish this forum fruitful deliberations and encourage all participants to translate ideas into concrete actions that will strengthen Africa's trade and integration. Thank you all, and God bless Africa.
Thank you very much, Gershon, for those valuable perspectives delivered on behalf of the Governor of the Central Bank of Ghana, Dr. Johnson Esiama. And thank you very much as well for helping me get one back on Harona. Ladies and gentlemen, we are especially honored to be here in the Gambia, and we're grateful to our host institution for its leadership and hospitality. To explore how ambition translates into execution, particularly from a regulatory standpoint, our next speaker brings decades of experience across central banking, fiscal policy, and international institutions, and currently serves as a chairman of the Association of African Central Banks. It is my honor to invite our host for this event and the Governor of the Central Bank of the Gambia, Dr. Boaseidi, to speak on operationalizing AFCFTA, for banks, what regulatory alignment is needed to enable cross-border trade finance within Africa. Ladies and gentlemen, a round of applause for our Governor.
Good morning. Assalamu alaikum. Honorable Ministers, Deputy Governors of Central Bank of the Gambia, members of the Board of Directors of Central Bank of the Gambia, Ghana International PLC, Lord Paul Boatin, Akiem and Wembley, who is a member of the United Kingdom House of Lords, and his colleagues, Sandeep Bandari and Farhan Al-Hassan. Chief Executive Officer of GHIB, Dean Adanse, Deputy CEO and Chief Operating Officer of GHIB, Raymond Sambu, Permanent Secretaries here present, Managing Directors of commercial banks and public and private entities, representative of the Governor of Bank of Ghana, senior executives, development partners, the media, ladies and gentlemen, all protocols duly observed. It is an honor and privilege to address this august gathering. Let me take this opportunity to warmly welcome you all to the Gambia, the smiling coast of Africa. This particular time of the year coincides with our peak tourist season. So I encourage you to take full advantage of your stay and enjoy the beauty that nature has blessed this country with. I also want to sincerely express our warm appreciation to Ghana International Bank for convening this important conference here in Banjul, and to all of you for traveling from near and far to engage in a conversation that speaks directly to Africa's economic future. Your presence here today reflects a shared commitment to deepening Africa's economic integration and strengthening the foundation for sustainable trade and investment across our continent. It affirms a common conviction that Africa's development will not be driven by ambition alone, but by the strength of institutions, the depth of its partnership, and the effectiveness of the financial system that connects our economies to the wider world. Ladies and gentlemen, it is against this backdrop that I have chosen to speak today on the theme Trade Finance as a Growth Multiplier for African Economies, the case of the Gambia. At its core, this theme reminds us that trade does not move on goodwill alone. It moves on trust, liquidity, confidence, and quiet but indispensable machinery of finance. Trade finance is the invincible bridge between partners, between producers and markets, between aspiration and execution. When it all works well, it magnifies investment, economic growth, and overall well-being of society. When it falters, even the most open markets remain out of reach. Across Africa, we have taken bold steps towards integration. The African Continental Free Trade Area stands as a landmark achievement, a declaration of intent to create a single African market, to deepen value chains, and to anchor growth in trade production. Yet experience has taught us an important lesson. Market access is not the same as market participation. Firms cannot export what they cannot finance. Trade agreements alone do not move goods. They only open doors, and finance determines who can walk through them. Without reliable trade finance, many African firms, particularly small and medium-sized enterprises, struggle to take advantage of the African Continental Free Trade Area. Opportunities, especially in manufacturing, agro-processing, and services. As a result, the promise of integration remains partially realized. This is why trade finance must be understood not as a peripheral support mechanism, but as a central driver of Africa's growth transformation. When trade finance functions effectively, it enables firms to expand production, manage risk, and enter new markets. It supports domestic supply chains, deepens financial intermediation, stabilizes foreign exchange flows, and reinforces macroeconomic resilience. In doing so, it multiplies the impact of trade far beyond individual transactions. Ladies and gentlemen, yet for much of Africa, this multiplier remains underutilized. The continent faces a persistent and sizable trade finance gap, estimated at over 80 billion United States dollars annually. This gap weighs most heavily on small and medium-sized enterprises, agro-businesses, and cross-border traders. These are the firms that employ the majority of our people, anchor rural livelihoods, and hold the greatest potential for inclusive growth. When they lack access to trade finance, they remain small, informal, and disconnected from regional value chains, limiting the growth dividend that trade should deliver and the promise of integration unfulfilled. This brings us to the quiet but decisive role of institutions, particularly central banks and internationally connected financial intermediaries. Financial stability and trade facilitation are not opposing goals, but complementary ones. Central banks therefore have a critical role to play in this regard. While our primary mandate remains price stability and financial system soundness, Africa's development context demands a broader perspective. Central banks must also act as guidance of financial connectivity, ensuring that domestic financial systems remain integrated into regional and global networks that support trade and investment. At the Central Bank of the Gambia, this reality is especially clear. We are convinced that financial connectivity is not a luxury. It is a necessity. As a small open economy, our growth, our price stability, our external balance, and our resilience to shocks are inseparable from the smooth functioning of trade and payment systems. Preserving access to global financial networks is therefore a matter of macroeconomic stability. In recent years, we have responded with deliberate reforms, strengthening regulation and supervision, and enhancing compliance with international AML and CFT standards, and working closely with domestic banks to improve governance, transparency, and risk management. These efforts are not merely about meeting global norms. They are about building trust that allows trade finance to flow, and confidence that anchors our financial systems within the global financial architecture. Here in the Gambia, we acknowledge that GHIB is not simply correspondent bank operating at a distance. It is deeply embedded partner in our trade and financial landscape. It serves as a bridge connecting Gambian banks to regional and global markets, translating international liquidity into local economic activity and providing structured finance solutions in environments where confidence is often in short supply. Through trade finance facilities, correspondent banking services, risk mitigation, and liquidity support, GHIB enables commerce in the Gambia that extends far beyond balance sheets. These financial flows support importers of essential goods, exporters seeking new markets, manufacturers expanding capacity, and households whose livelihood depends on trade-linked activities. This is what it means for trade finance to be intertwined with national development. The scale of this partnership is telling. In 2024 alone, GHIB facilitated over $1 billion United States dollars in trade-related transactions for the Gambia and extended approximately $123.75 million United States dollars in trade finance support to Gambian banks. These flows ensure the availability of essential imports, supported export activities, ease pressure on the foreign exchange market, and reinforce confidence in the banking system. This is trade finance at work, not in abstraction, but in live economic outcomes, supporting not only trade volumes, but macroeconomic stability and economic resilience. From a central banking perspective, such partnerships reduce systemic risk, strengthen market confidence, and enhance the transmission of policy objectives to the real economy. It also demonstrates how international connected banks and institutions can complement domestic reforms and amplify their impact. Distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, payment and settlement systems form another critical pillar. Africa's continued reliance on third-party currencies for inter-African trade imposes unnecessary costs and drains scarce foreign exchange. Initiatives such as the Pan-African Payments and Settlement System, PAPS, offers a pathway towards greater efficiency and autonomy. But as I already emphasized, systems alone are not enough. They must be supported by strong regulation adequate liquidity, and effective oversight. In the Gambia, we continue to strengthen our payments system infrastructure and promote interoperability and support digital solutions that reduce settlement risk and transaction costs to ensure it supports rather than constrain trade. Beyond systems, central banks can also play a catalytic role by supporting credit guaranteed schemes, encouraging development finance institutions to crowd in private capital, and promote innovative investments tailored to the needs of small traders and exporters. In the Gambia, we have pursued such initiatives through targeted interventions aimed at de-risking priority sectors, particularly agriculture and agro-processing. These efforts have helped improve access to finance, stabilize domestic production, and reduce vulnerability to external shocks. GHIB has been an important partner in supporting these efforts through structured facilities and advisory engagements. Ladies and gentlemen, Africa's trade ambitions will not be realized through declarations alone. They will be realized through alignments between policy and practice, between regulation and innovation, between domestic reform and international partnership. Trade finance is where these forces converge. As central bankers, our responsibility is to ensure that the financial system serves the real economy. We must create the conditions under which our businesses can trade with confidence, access finance at competitive terms, and integrate seamlessly into regional and global value chains that generates jobs, resilience, and shared prosperity. For the Gambia, trade finance agreements present a strategic opportunity to reposition our economy within the regional trade architecture. Our location, our growing financial sector, and our commitment to reform provide a solid foundation for deeper integration. At the central bank, we are working to strengthen our regulatory framework, enhance financial sector resilience, and build capacity of our banks to support trade and investment. We are also focused on creating an enabling environment for SMEs, which remain central to employment creation and inclusive growth. At the same time, we recognize that regulatory alignment must go hand in hand with broader structural reforms. Trade facilitation, infrastructure development, digitalization, and policy coordination are all critical components of a successful Africa Continental Free Trade Area implementation. However, central banks cannot do this alone. It requires close collaboration with ministries of finance, trade authorities, customs administrations, and the private sector. In closing, allow me to reiterate the central message of this gathering. that trade finance is one of Africa's most powerful yet underutilized growth multipliers. When anchored in sound policy, supported by strong institutions, and reinforced by trusted partnership, such as that between the Gambia and Ghana International Bank, it becomes a force for transformation. Today, with a stronger macroeconomic fundamentals and more resilient institutional environment, the Gambia stands at a point of opportunity. The foundations are in place to deepen the partnership further, to widen access to trade finance for local businesses, to support enterprise growth, and to embed trade more firmly as a driver of sustainable development. This is how trade finance become growth multiplier, not through rhetoric, but through relationship, resilience, and results. As a nation, let us therefore commit ourselves to continue building a financial system that enables trade to flow freely, growth to multiply sustainably, and the Gambia's vast potential to be fully realized. I will close by reiterating the significant role the GHIB is playing in supporting international trade in the Gambia. However, we believe the macroeconomic opportunities exist to allow GHIB expand engagements with local economic actors to boost access to trade, finance, and bolster sustainable economic growth. Equally, I urge our business community and banks to take advantage of this meeting and to network and build partnership to support their activities going forward. On this note, I thank you all for your kind attention and wish us all a fruitful engagement in the rest of our days here. Thank you. I want to say a special thank you to the Honorable Minister of Communication and Digital Economy, Honorable Jabi, for allowing us to use the hall for the opening ceremony. Thank you. Thank you, Honorable.
The Honorable Governor of the Central Bank of the Gambia, Mr. Boa Sedi. Thank you very much, Mr. Governor. Thank you. I think we have an idea of what GHIB is all about. Therefore, I'm throwing an open invitation to everybody here to attend Converge in August in London. It will be a great opportunity for interaction and casually, bankers and money. I'm hearing numbers, $126 million, billions of dollars. We throw numbers everywhere. I have not seen that kind of money. They exist? It does, okay. God, when will we see those kind of numbers? Imagine $100 million in my account. I will not sleep. Something else would happen. So we've gained a bit of time, about 30 minutes. So I believe we are on course, and we'll soon go for coffee break. And then for some other people here, lunch will also be served soon enough. The next speaker is a former lawmaker who is very close to GHIB, and he is speaking to us special remarks on trade finance as a catalyst for Africa's global financial integration, actually. and Lord Paul Boateng. I definitely have that name right.
Your Excellencies, Honourable Ministers, Governor of the Central Bank, Deputy Governors, fellow board members and members of the GHIB family. And as I learned to say during my time as High Commissioner of the United Kingdom to South Africa, all the feathers of the eagle, all the feathers of the eagle. That is each and every one of you performing different roles, different shapes, different sizes within your organization, different weights, different colors even. But as we know, with that great bird that is a symbol of Africa, the symbol of so many nations, that it is the feathers, all the feathers, working together, performing their different roles, that makes that great bird, the eagle, take flight. So it is with trade finance. All of you have got different parts to play, different roles to play in that. But it's when we work together that truly we take flight. Honourable Ministers, Deputy Governor, we are honoured to be hosted by your country, honoured for the opportunity to work with and in the Gambia. We are here, of course, with a purpose. These 5 days are devoted to the purpose of sharing knowledge around trade finance, getting to grips with the subject matter, which you will be doing over the next few days in detail. Also, and importantly, getting to know each other that much better, sharing this common purpose of enhancing our knowledge and our capacity in trade finance. But of course, it's knowledge with a purpose. It's trade finance contributing towards something great, something beyond even our own individual ambition for ourselves, for our enterprises, contributing towards the development of this great continent of ours. Knowledge. A purpose. A reason for coming together at this critical time. A critical time in our world. Frankly, our world is in a troubled place. Let's be honest about that. And trade, restraints on trade, trade wars, that's part and parcel of the context in which we gather. And so, developing our knowledge, coming together with a shared purpose, is all the more important for each and every one of us, our organizations, our country, at this particular time. We meet in Gambia, in this beautiful hall, in this place that's been part of so many ancient kingdoms. Mali, Songhai, Ghana, all those empires, the Gambia has been a part of that. And all those empires Gambia and this particular stretch of land and river were central to those empires reaching out. Small in size, yes, but significant in terms of impact and purpose. And there are a couple of Madinka and Wolof sayings that I think are worth thinking about at this particular time. There is a Madinka saying that knowledge is better than wealth. Knowledge is better than wealth. You have to look after wealth, but knowledge looks after you. You have to look after wealth, but knowledge looks after you. A Madinka saying. And then the Wolof saying, before cooking, you must have provisions. Before cooking, you must have provisions. There is no greater provision than knowledge. And we need that knowledge if indeed we are to ensure that trade finance makes its contribution to the growth and development of our continent. And I think it's important to set our deliberations in this country of Gambia within a specific context. And the context, of course, for Gambia and for the continent are, in the case of Gambia, Vision 2050. And in the case of the continent as a whole, the Africa Continental Free Trade Area. And I just want, if I may, to set our deliberations and our work over the next few days within that particular context. Vision 2050 and the centrality of trade to that. Vision 2050 identifies several core objectives. And honourable ministers, you will know this better than any of us. Economic diversification beyond re-exports, value addition in agriculture and fisheries. Now, I am the grandson of a cocoa and a cassava farmer. Agriculture means a lot to me. Fisheries means a lot to both our countries. Indeed, I'm told that here in Gambia, you have a place called Ghana Town that is full of Ghanaian fishermen. So that resonates with us at GHIB. Then, SME-led industrialization, regional and global integration. Those are the core components of Vision 2050. And yet we know each of these objectives depends on one thing: the ability of Gambian firms to trade competitively across borders. The ability of Gambian firms to trade competitively across borders. And yet we also know that today many SMEs cannot in fact access letters of credit. They can't access guarantees, affordable foreign exchange, reliable cross-border settlement. This is not a failure of their entrepreneurship. It is a failure of financial intermediation. And we need to recognize that fact, and we've got to do something about it. And that is why the relationship between GHIB and Governor, the Central Bank of Gambia is so strategically important, and why we are so grateful to you and Gambia for your leadership in this area, and why the Governor of the Central Bank of Ghana, so ably represented here this morning, holds Gambia so close to its heart, and our relationship between Ghana and Gambia and their central banks is so important. Because to that strategic relationship, Ghana International Bank brings strong correspondent banking capability, regional credibility, we've been around a long time, access to international financial markets, and importantly, and I would say this as a freeman of the City of London, it brings also the credibility of a regulatory context within the UK that ensures that Gambia and Gambian enterprises in working with us have that assurance that the regulatory environment in which the GHIB works brings. And the Central Bank of Gambia brings. And it's a great credit to you, Governor, and to your deputies and to your staff. You bring a regulatory authority, a determination to be leaders in the field, skilled monetary and foreign exchange management, and a well-established stewardship of financial stability. And anyone, Governor, listening to your speech this morning gets a very clear impression of that. So together, GHIB and the Central Bank form a critical delivery mechanism for Vision 25's trade and private sector objectives. Now, setting it in the wider context, what we know Africa needs is private sector-led, export-orientated, and job-creative activity. That's Africa's need. That's what Africa looks to us to provide, not least given the demographic realities which we face that are both a challenge, because there's lots of bright, able young people out there looking for employment, a challenge, yes, but also, and importantly, because of the skills that those young people represent, an opportunity. And what we know is that trade finance directly enables this to happen by allowing SMEs to import productive inputs, export processed goods, participate in regional value change. We know also, and importantly, the necessity for foreign exchange and liquidity, the importance of aligning policy and practice, and we know that together, central banks, GHIB, we can work together to advance that agenda. Just also and importantly, we know the challenges around risk sharing in support of SME development. Because, you know, Vision 2050 in putting SMEs at the backbone of employment and innovation are all too often, and we've heard that from the distinguished speeches made in the course of this morning, SMEs are all too often excluded from trade finance due to perceived risk. We can't ignore that risk, but what we have to do is to manage and to share it. So together, working together, we can find a way forward, built on the importance of compliance, governance, demonstrating, developing, enhancing international confidence. Together, we can make the difference that our continent calls each and every one of us and our institutions to do. We are here because we want to make a difference. We are here because it falls to us at this time, this challenging time, to step up to the mark, to step forward, to embrace the challenge and the opportunity, and to do so in a way that is brave, to do so in a way that is courageous, to say, yes, the challenges are there, but we mustn't despair. We must draw upon the talent, the experience, the wealth of this great continent. The wealth, yes, in our biodiversity. The wealth, yes, in our mineral-rich land. But above all, the wealth in our people, the human capacity that Africa possesses. The youngest, the fastest growing continent in the world. Yes, these are troubled times. These are troubling times. But this is Africa's time. And we must embrace the opportunity that these challenges present. And embrace it in a way that calls on us to recognize that we cannot ignore what's going on in the world in terms of its technology. We can't ignore the importance of equipping ourselves with the knowledge that comes with AI. We can't ignore the growing importance and significance of blockchain technology, not least here in trade finance, in terms of developing an ability to mine the data, to enhance trust and confidence. Trust and confidence, they're words that have appeared in all the speeches you've heard this morning. Blockchain, AI have a role to play in all of that, and we must make sure that we equip ourselves with this knowledge. Enhancing it in ways that develop our nations, our institutions, and our continent. And I end on this. GHIB is proud to be your partners in this. Proud to be your partners, hopefully, of choice. But always we remember our origins. Way, way back. What is 66 years ago it is now? Looking around this room, I reckon I'm one of a handful who was around at that time. I remember when Kwame Nkrumah founded the GHIB, when we acquired those premises in London 66 years ago. I remember because my father was there, because my father brought me back some toys from his visit to London for that purpose, when I was a small boy running around in short pants in Accra. I remember the hope and the expectation of our forefathers and our foremothers in founding GHIB. I remember the hope and expectation that brought the peoples of West Africa and Africa together at that time in the struggle for independence and self-determination. We were designed to be a Pan-African bank. We were placed in London so that we could be of service, not just to Ghana, but to the whole continent. And you know, our symbol, the symbol of our bank, is a symbol that is an Adinkra symbol and a Kan symbol. The symbol that we call Besisaka. It is a symbol of wealth and prosperity through unity. Wealth and prosperity through unity. That is the meaning of that symbol, reflecting the proverb. Now, I'm Lord Boateng of Achim, but my tree is not all that it should be. But our saying is this: Obi Mafa Nesika Nini, which means simply this: no one eats their wealth alone. No one eats their wealth alone. We are all in this together. When we work together, we enhance the prosperity of all. So let it be with GHIB and the Gambia. We are in this together. The wealth of all will be enhanced. So, not just for the next 5 days, but for the future of Ghana and the Gambia. Onwards and upwards. Onwards and upwards. Thank you very much.
Gentlemen, don't you just love his energy and passion? I certainly do. Another round of applause for Lord Boateng of Achim. Lord Boateng, you may have been around since the start of GHIB, but I must say, you don't look it at all. Very young at heart and vibrant. Thank you very much for that. One thing I took from your speech was you have to look after wealth, but knowledge looks after you. That's a very profound statement, and that's one thing I will take away with me today. And in the spirit of enhancing our knowledge in trade finance, we've heard about opportunity, integration, and regulation. Our next speaker will now pull these threads together into a broader continental vision. With an extensive career spanning international development finance and public service, our next speaker brings both policy depth and practical insights to Africa's trade and economic agenda. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me to welcome our keynote speaker for this event, Honorable C.D. Keita, Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs of the Gambia.
Colleague ministers here present, distinguished ladies, leaders, governors of the central bank, managing directors of various commercial banks, CEOs, Lord Boateng, welcome to the Gambia, and thanks for the pleasant exchange we had at the House of Parliament during my last visit to London in December. Permanent secretaries, captains of industry, representatives of the development financial institutions, esteemed partners from the United Kingdom and global financial systems, all other protocols duly and respectively observed. It is indeed an honor
to deliver this address at this inaugural Ghana International Bank Afri-Trade-X Dialogue, an important platform that is convened at a critical moment for Africa. I would like to commend the Ghana International Bank for establishing a space where Africa's trade, investment, and financial leaders can speak frankly and collaboratively about the future of our continent, particularly as it pertains to economic transformations. Ghana's International Bank's 65-year legacy in the City of London and its mandate as the UK's Pan-African Bank underscores the strategic value of the platforms like this. Our theme today is clear and compelling: securing Pan-African trade finance, the most critical task for Africa's economic development. This is simply not a statement, it is a fact. Across the continent, with viable opportunities, export contracts, and growth potentials, face one recurring and debilitating constraint, that is access to finance and trade. Afrexim Bank's trade report of 2025 reveals that Africa faces a persistent 88 billion annual trade financing gap, a structural shortfall that constrains SMEs and corporates across all regions of the continent. An expanded analysis by Afrexim Bank economists further estimates that these broader shortage, including rejected applications and unmet market demand, exceeds 420 billion, representing the single most binding constraint to industrialization and continental value chain development. Meanwhile, intra-Africa trade still accounts for less than 15% of the continent's total trade, significantly lower than that of Asia or Europe. These numbers tell a stark truth. Without accessible, affordable, and reliable trade finance, Africa cannot industrialize, cannot integrate, and cannot grow at scale our people demand and deserve to take the next leap. Why trade finance matters for economic transformation. Trade finance is simply not a banking service alone. It is the engine that powers factories, exporters, logistics firms, agricultural businesses, energy supplies, and cross-border commerce. It is the enabler of jobs, particularly for Africa's growing youth population. Industrialization through access to machinery, inputs, and working capital. Food security through import financing and regional agricultural trade. Energy security through financing for fuel, power, our equipment, and infrastructure. SME growth, as SMEs comprise 80 to 90% of Africa's businesses and yet remains the most constrained in accessing finance. Economies do not grow on ambition alone. They grow on liquidity, credit, trust, and systems that enable businesses to participate confidently in regional and global markets. Today, too many African exporters lose contracts not because they lack capacity, but because they lack the financing to fulfill the demand. Too many African importers pay higher premium, not because they are high risks, but because systemic biases in the global financial architecture. Too many African banks are the risks not because of weak fundamentals, but because of evolving global regulations that do not reflect Africa's reality. In fact, this is one point the rating agencies are still struggling with. The risk premium for lending to Africa does not reflect the realities of the fundamentals of the continent. And this is why we are calling on the global financial architecture to be revamped to reflect the true cost of doing business in Africa. Africa is paying more risk premium in financial transactions, more than equally risk-rated institutions, simply because of perception. Gone should be those days when we should just be price takers. We should be at the center of the discussion and contribute our part in revamping the global financial architecture so that we pay a fair price, not just a perceived price. This is the challenge we must confront boldly. A volatile global context requires African solutions. The African Trade Report highlights that Africa's total trade declined by 6.3% in 2023, falling to 1.4 trillion, largely due to global shocks, supply chain disruption, and geopolitical tensions and monetary tightening. UNCTAD and ECA warned that Africa's economic vulnerabilities, ranging from high debt levels to currency volatility, are amplified by overdependence on external markets. At the same time, UNECA projects that full implementation of the AfCFTA could increase intra-Africa trade by up to 45% by 2045 and raise the continental GDP by 1.2%, provide trade finance and logistics systems that are to be strengthened. In other words, Africa's future is bright, but only if it is financed. The Gambia's perspective, a small country with a big vision. For the Gambia, trade is not an abstract context. It is a lifeline. We know that trade finance and access to the ancillary trade banking services, correspondent bank, global payment system is the difference between hospitals having drugs and exam papers being marked or government importing fuel for electricity and being able to export our groundnuts. It is a lifeline that allows our valiant banks receiving remittances from abroad so that Auntie Job in Bakau or Uncle Sam in Brikama can receive money Brother Jallo sent from Madrid. As a country located at the crossroads of the West African commerce, we see daily potential of the SMEs, traders, manufacturers, logistics operators whose prosperity depend on access to finance. The government of His Excellency Adama Barrow, our government, is committed to advancing reforms that strengthen our financial sector, deepen cross-border trade, and support the African continental free trade ambition for a borderless economic space. We know that trade finance must be more accessible, more affordable, and digitally enabled, as well as regionally integrated. And we know we cannot do this alone. We need partnerships like those demonstrated by GHIB and delivered by GHIB in conjunction with the commercial banks across the continent. The role of the GHIB platforms like the AfriTradeX, I would like to recognize the GHIB for its long-standing leadership in Africa's trade finance ecosystem. For 67 years, GHIB has been a bridge between Africa and the global financial markets, supporting sovereigns, banks, SMEs, corporates, especially for us here in the Gambia. I must say this emphatically that without the GHIB, Gambia would have had challenges in accessing global finance. And as a UK Pan-African Trade Bank, GHIB's mandate aligns perfectly with the needs of the moment. That is to mobilize trade, intermediating cross-border flows, reducing and de-risking financial pressures, and building sustainable partnerships that strengthen Africa's economies. AfriTradeX, therefore, is more than a conference. It is a strategic forum to design the financial solutions Africa needs for the next decade. A call to action. To all leaders gathered here today, I offer 3 challenges. 1, let us commit to closing the Africa's trade gaps, which is ranging from 88 billion to 420 billion. This is the most urgent economic task before us in order to take our continent forward. Let us strengthen African-led financial institutions. They are our own. As we say in our local language, that I preserve myself doesn't mean I hate you. So charity begins at home, and let's support our home-based institutions, regardless of their address. Let us ensure that African Continental Free Trade Area becomes the trade finance that enables a single market. No African business should face financing barriers to trade with another African country. In conclusion, financing the Africa we want. Africa stands at a pivotal moment. With the world's youngest population, abundant resources, and a 3.4 trillion AfCFTA market before us, our future is full of promise. But the promise will remain unrealized unless it is merged with the financing required. This is why I agree wholeheartedly that securing Pan-African trade finance is the most critical task for Africa's economic development. Let us seize this moment and let us design solutions that work for Africa. Let us ensure that the next generation inherits a continent that trades boldly, competes confidently, and prospers collectively. Before I conclude, I must emphasize the role of trade in not just enhancing prosperity, but in maintaining peace and security. It is said and noted that you don't fight with your trading partner as your economic interests are aligned. And this single intervention has been found out to be one of the surest ways to enhance global peace. We have the EU today. It started as a trading bloc. We have the USA as a country, but look at the NAFTA. It has enhanced peace and security among the North Africa. Similarly, the Asian and the Mercosur trading blocs are all having their positive impact on enhancing peace. As trade increases among African countries, we believe peace and security on the continent will follow suit. I thank you for your kind attention.
Thank you very much, Honorable Sidi Keita, Minister of Finance and Economic Affairs. Another round of applause for him, ladies and gentlemen. Now, I know our throats are getting a bit dry and some of us are parched, and I also know that some of you cannot wait to sample that strong coffee I promised at the start of this event. We'll soon get to that. Before we do that, before we go on to the well-deserved coffee break, I'd like to invite on stage the CEO of GHIB, Mr. Dina Dancy, the Deputy CEO of GHIB, Mr. Raymond Sambu, the board, the CCO of GHIB, Mr. Richard Agbenu, the Governor of the Central Bank of Gambia, Mr. Gershon, repping the Governor of the Central Bank of Ghana, and all ministers present for a photo, please. It's time for a photo shoot. Very important. Our two Deputy Central Bank Governors to join them on stage as well, please. I'm so excited now, and I see one female in there. I was beginning to get a bit worried. Okay, can I now invite all bank CEOs to join them on stage, please? All bank CEOs, join them on stage. All CEOs of various institutions present to join them on stage. I'd also like to call on Mr. Anis Hassan and Mr. Matthew Paris to join them on stage, please. Participants in the room to join on stage for one big family photo shoot. Everybody, we'll probably have to line up. We're not going to fit on the stage, so some of us would have to line up just in front of the stage. All participants, please join for the group photo. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. You're now free to go for that well-deserved coffee break. If you just take the door to my left-hand side, the double doors to my left-hand side, just out the doors, turn right, and you'll see the coffee on the right-hand side once you get into the hall. For the VIPs here, if you could remain in the room, our ushers would lead you to have your coffee break. Thank you very much. 15 minutes, ladies and gentlemen. Please, let's be back on time. Thank you very much. Really? Oh, thank you so much. Thank you. Yeah, thank you. Really? Oh, thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. That means a lot. Thank you. If you could usher the VIP delegates to the VIP coffee room, please. Our VIP coffee room is located upstairs. If you could kindly follow our lovely ushers in blue to the coffee room upstairs for the VIPs. And for all delegates, the coffee room is to my left-hand side through the double doors on your right once you step out into the hallway. Thank you very much.
Mali jamu na suri